This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, real MVPs? Ricky Widmer here, along with the Mark Weber.
What's up, Demies?
And we are back for another edition of the Onside Kick right here on Most Valuable Podcast, where we talk about everything that is going on in the NFL. Mark, we are 7 weeks in the books, and I almost sent a tweet to our fantasy football group, but I decided to be nice, where I almost took a screenshot of the NFC North standings and went, everything is finally right, as it should be. Vikings, Packers, Lions, and then the Bears down at the bottom. But I didn't. I was nice, but I was just mean to you right now for bringing it up.
No, it's all right. I don't feel that bad about it. I mean, like I said to some other people who were talking about that game, and people even in the comment section, like, I don't know, what was that, 3 weeks ago, were mad at me for saying this. Bears have no business beating the Patriots, and they were close. I'm all right with that.
Well, and the one thing, and I know we're not going to go deep in the Bears here, but I will say this. So far, I am right. I said this was going to be the year where you were going to finish probably like 8-8, 7-9, maybe 9-7, and go, oh, man, if we would have won that game or we would have won this game, then we would have been in the playoffs. Like, close three-point games, Packers and Patriots.
There's still, at least for the Bears fans, you don't have to give up hope completely. It's 3-3. There's plenty of football left to play.
Well, we got a jam-packed show for you guys. It is Trade Deadline Podcast, as next Tuesday we'll record Tuesday night. It'll be after the deadline is over, so we'll know all the trades that are going to happen, so we can talk about what we think will happen before the deadline next week. And it's funny because Amari Cooper gets traded, and I made the joke to Brandon last week, like, oh, usually the NFL trade deadline isn't anything special. It comes, it goes, usually nothing big happens. But so far this year, we've got one, and that's one we're going to talk about. Amari Cooper getting traded to the Cowboys. Before that, we're going to look at Patrick Peterson. Is he going to get moved? And then we'll end the show before our picks, talking about what moves we would like to see this year at the trade deadline. Before we get into everything, make sure to hit us up on Patreon, patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. If you want to help support the channel, if you join us at the $10 tier, you can come on a podcast each and every month and talk about the topic you would like to talk about. You can also support us by getting a t-shirt with the MVP logo on it. That is down below in the description. You can also get it at mostvaluablepodcast.com, where you can catch MVP each and every day. And then last but not least, please go to iTunes. Please give us a 5-star rating if you think we're deserving of it, and let us know why you like listening to the podcast each and every week. But Mark, let's start talking about a little Cardinals here. Patrick Peterson over the weekend, or I believe it was Monday, basically came in and said, I want to be traded. So the Cardinals are now shopping Patrick Peterson, trying to see what they can get for him. I am just going to ask you blatantly, not only will he get traded, but who's your first team you think should trade for Patrick Peterson?
Well, I don't think he's going to be traded, first of all, because Wilkes has said we're not trading him. But, maybe it's not his decision. I mean, the coach doesn't decide whether to trade a guy or not, and this team's not very good.
Unless you're Bill Belichick.
Yeah, or when you were back in Chip Kelly, and look what happened there. Or
John Gruden.
Yeah, well, John Gruden, he's still got a job right now. But, he said, coach says no. That doesn't mean GM's going to say no. And if you look at this team, they're not very good. They've got this young quarterback here who should be better, next year. But there's not too much going on. Larry Fitzgerald is going to retire, assumedly next year. You're not really, if you can get something good out of Patrick Peterson, why not trade him? I mean, Amari Cooper just went for a first. And you're telling me that Patrick Peterson, you can't get at least a second out of this? I mean, if Amari Cooper gets a first, I think Patrick Peterson should get a first.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, Adam Schefter, he tweeted out after the Amari Cooper thing went down, where he said, if he's the Cardinals, he's ecstatic right now. Yeah. Because that means the Cardinals can pretty much ask for that. I know that Peterson is 4 years older, but but I would say he's highly better ranked at his position than Cooper is at his.
Exactly. And, so there's all that. But the hard thing is there aren't that many teams in my eyes that I sit here and say this team would go for it and has the capital to do it. The team I wanted to say until they traded for Eli Apple was the Saints. Mm-hmm. The Saints, that was an obvious one to me of, here you go for it. Drew Brees is at the end of his career. Make your last push. Your team has been good, but hitting some roadblocks at the same time. Mm-hmm. Not as good as they were last year. You got to go for it. You got to make it happen, so go all in right now. And it's kind of too late for them because they went and got Eli Apple.
Mm-hmm. And that was one thing that I know Sean was saying on the MVP Twitter of basically, why are you going and getting Eli Apple when Patrick Peterson is right there? And I think the main thing is, first off, I mean, for the Saints, it's a little bit of like a, why aren't you doing it? But also you got to remember, the Saints don't have their first this year. They gave it to Green Bay so that they could jump up and take Davenport in last April or May's draft for the NFL. So, I mean, maybe they just didn't have the collateral to get that trade done and said, hey, we can send a fourth and a late round for Eli Apple.
Or the flip side, if you got to go get Eli Apple, maybe it's true. Maybe the Cardinals really are saying, we're not even answering the phone. We're not going to trade him.
Do you honestly believe, Steve? Like, I think you do. I believe that he's not going to get traded.
Yeah, I believe that the coach doesn't want him to be traded. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily 100% believe that the GM is not willing to listen to offers. Mm-hmm. But I do think that he's probably not going to do too much. But think about how devastating it would be for Cardinals fans out there to have this young rookie quarterback, which is exciting, but then you're going to lose, pretty much the only good wide receiver on your team. Mm-hmm. You're going to potentially lose Peterson, best defensive player on your team. Your running back, your star running back, has had some injury problems in recent year. So, it's not looking good if you're a Cardinals fan, and these things do happen.
Well, and there's one team, I was looking at a CBS Sports article earlier, and there was one team that I looked at on this article and was like, man, they should make a trade, but they're not going to make a trade for Patrick Peterson, and that's the New England Patriots. Like, I see that and I go, they're already a Super Bowl favorite. Mm-hmm. They're already a team that people think that, like, they beat the Chiefs, so really you can say they already beat them once. They can beat them again, although it was a close game. And many people have them as the odds-on favorite to run through the AFC East or AFC playoffs to get to the Super Bowl. And the biggest thing, week after week, that you hear about this team is how weak they are at corner, My only thing is, I look at it and I go, that would be perfect. The Patriots don't necessarily need a first-round draft pick. They can get Peterson, who's still under contract for this year and 2 more seasons afterwards. But I look at that and I go, that's not a Bill Belichick move. Belichick doesn't give away draft picks to get players. He gets rid of players like Chandler Jones, like Collins, and gets draft picks that then he can pick guys to develop. And,
and that's exactly it, because they could use it. They for sure could, but you saw it if you were watching their game against the Bears. It doesn't really matter what goes on out there. Mm-hmm. Tom Brady can get it done because he's Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how many points he's got to score. He'll go ahead and do it. Go back a couple more weeks. Watch them play the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen. Tom Brady doesn't care. He wants to win games. Tom Brady's going to go win games. Mm-hmm. It's really that simple. To stick around in the AFC East, a team that surely could use some corner help or defensive help in general, Miami Dolphins. They could use some help. Mm-hmm. And they're a team which, I don't know, sometimes I feel like they're good, sometimes I feel like they're not there yet, but they're almost there. And a guy like Patrick Peterson, you're going to have him for, 3 more years? Mm-hmm. So, not a bad deal. Not a bad deal at all.
Yeah, and I feel like the trade that we're going to talk about next, is that one going to hinder a deal for Patrick Peterson this year? Because I'm going to circle back to it. Amari Cooper went not just for a first rounder. You got to think of this. If the draft were to be tonight, Amari Cooper was traded for the 8th overall pick. That's what Dallas has right now. So,
but Dallas, of course, is saying that it's not going to be that.
Exactly.
It's going to be a lot higher.
But right now, as we're looking at it, it's of course the value may change, but right now the value is what it is. And maybe the Cardinals could look at that and go, no, we don't want the Patriots would be if they go and lose in the conference game. They're between 29 to 32. What people if they lose in the conference game or go to the Super Bowl, or Miami, who right now would be the 19th pick overall. Are the Cardinals looking at it and going, that's not high enough?
Because a first is a first.
Because they still have him for 2 years after this year and 2 years, to where the Cardinals don't necessarily have to make a move for Peterson or deal him by the deadline.
And there's also a big thing to be said, too, of there's a lot of good wide receivers in this draft coming up. At least as far as I'm aware, there's not as many good corners and safeties who can be all over the field in this draft. So a little bit less prospects available for you to replace.
The thing that I want to ask about this is, what do you think this means for not just the Cardinals, but this coaching staff? Because this is a coaching staff that Steve Wilkes, about a week or two ago, said, all of our jobs are on the line, which I joked around with Brandon while we were recording the Primetime podcast, where I was like, hey, Steve, don't make those jokes. Nobody likes to get chutted. We don't talk about people getting chutted in the NFL because we know it's bound to happen. In some cases, but this is a team that Mike McCoy gets fired this week after Dave. We're recording Too Old the game on Thursday. We're looking at the score of the Bronco Cardinal game, and Dave goes, their OC's getting fired. Friday, boom, Mike McCoy was out of town, and he was fired for the 3rd time since the beginning of 2017.
He'll be back.
He'll be back on another team. But what does it mean that your top defensive player is saying he wants out, and your head coach is a defensive coach? This is the guy that should be on your coach's side, not saying, I want out of here.
Exactly. And it really shows that he's saying, when you got a guy like Larry Fitzgerald out there who has played through some terrible teams and kept loyal, then you got Patrick Peterson going, I don't want to be Larry Fitzgerald. That says a lot, because it's not just a guy saying,
really, Larry
I want to get out of here.
only had that one shot at the Super Bowl,
and it was quite the shot.
Warner.
Yeah, it was quite the shot, but not quite. Anyways, that says a lot when he has the example there. It's not just some player being like, I want to get out of here. No, it's a guy who has seen what happens to a man's career and how Larry Fitzgerald's kind of forgotten about a lot of times. So it says a lot. And what I think is interesting, too, to look at something that Wilkes said after being asked. He says, are we in a difficult situation? Yeah, we are. 1-6. Nobody feels great about where we are right now. And he says stuff after that about trying to turn around the corner and making sure they do things to get back on track. But the coach knows people aren't happy. And this could be that kind of bottom out where, whether Wilkes is there or not, the team starts to kind of clean house and start completely fresh. John Gruden's doing that, and he didn't really need to.
I'm going to save my John Gruden take for the next segment, because we're going to get into that with the Amari Cooper trade. But just to put it into kind of what perception, that's
perspective.
Perspective, that's what I'm looking for. If you look at, because Brandon and I's big board is out. Go check out the segments on the YouTube page and the full podcast on iTunes. But if you look at it right now, if the draft started today, I love doing this example of if it started today, the Cardinals would be the 3rd overall pick, depending on how it goes. But if the Giants would have won yesterday, the Cardinals would have been the 2nd overall pick. The 49ers and Giants, if they win games, that only helps the Arizona Cardinals moving forward.
Fortunately for the Arizona Cardinals, that doesn't happen very often.
Yes. My point being is, if you look at Brandon and I's big board, at 3, Nick Bosa and Ed Oliver are most likely going to be off the board, although Nick Bosa has that injury that he's going to be rehabbing.
I don't know, man. This is a completely different conversation for a completely different day.
It's not a big deal.
I'm a little bit jumping off of Nick Bosa a little bit, only because his brother also gets hurt a lot. Anyways, doesn't need to be talked about.
Yeah.
They're both amazing players, but I'm just saying.
My bottom line is basically he's Cardell Jones again. I'm not here to play school.
Yeah, and I give the man respect to be like, nope, peace, I'm out.
But what I'm saying is, Bosa, Oliver, let's say they're off the board. Bosa's a Giant. Oliver is a 49er. That means you have numerous places you could go if you're the Cardinals. You could go with the place that, I'll spoiler alert for 2 weeks, because that'll be, our first mock draft is in 2 weeks from tonight. I'll spoiler alert it. If I'm the Cardinals, the first position I'm looking at is offensive tackle. I'm either going Jonah Williams out of Alabama or Greg Little out of Ole Miss. Or you can go defensive end. You can go like a Colin Farrell. You can go with a Rashawn Gray. Or you could go with, or Rashawn Gary. You could also go with a cornerback and go at Greedy Williams. In LSU, just like Patrick Peterson, an LSU cornerback, depending on if you trade Peterson, if you want to pair him up with Patrick Peterson, there are numerous things, and of course all this is going to change as we go on and the college season goes on, the draft season goes on, but there are numerous things the Cardinals could do to where I understand Patrick Peterson is upset. I think that this is going to be a move where he doesn't get moved, because nobody wants to give them a high enough pick that they want. But I think what could also happen is this could be a reflection on the coaching staff, and maybe the GM, the owner, look at it and go, did we make the right hire? Yeah. Did we make the right hire, and do we have to make a change? Because this is a guy that's supposed to be a defensive coach, and our top defensive player is not happy.
Yeah, and this was the kind of pick where, when they went for Wilks as their head coach, where I remember saying, like, I don't like it, I don't dislike it. I'm very neutral on this. I can't lean one way or the other on this coaching hire. And I kind of feel like, hey, maybe there weren't really that many great options for the Cardinals at that point, but maybe there's something else they should have done, maybe something else they could have done, but maybe this is a kind of buffer type of coach. We'll have some rough years. We'll get some good picks. We'll get some good players, and we'll do what we can do and try and move forward.
And the thing that I just want to throw out there is some of the three coaches that Steve Wilks was under before getting this job. 06 to 08, he was the DB coach for the Bears under Lovie Smith, so good old Tampa 2.
Yep.
Then from 09 to 2011, he was the DB coach under Norv Turner with the San Diego Chargers. And then from 2012 until 2017, he was the DB coach, the assistant head coach, and then the DC/assistant head coach under Ron Rivera. So 2 former Bear guys, because Ron Rivera was also one that was under Lovie Smith before he went to the Carolina Panthers.
He's been under good coaches, and that was definitely something to be excited about. But to me, for Steve Wilks, there was nothing about him that really made me jump out and say, there we go. This is something to be excited about. And maybe Cardinals in the locker room, maybe they're responding to that.
2 last teams I want to ask you about before we move on. And this is number 1 and number 2 on many lists that I look at for possible trade targets. I want you to know, so if he is traded, what the probability that it's one of these 2 teams, Chiefs and Steelers.
Chiefs, I don't think are going to do anything because the Chiefs are in a really good spot. They don't need to really do anything.
Don't change anything when you're on a heater.
Exactly. And who was the other one you said?
Steelers. Mike Tomlin came out today and said they have no plans to do anything.
Yeah, I kind of lean towards they shouldn't, just because this team is such a back and forth type of thing, and you're probably going to lose your quarterback sometime in the very near future. So you might not want to spend those picks to get a player like this, but their defense could use the shot in the arm.
Yeah, I look at it, bottom line, he ain't getting moved. You got 2 years after this with him. If he's unhappy,
trade him then.
Who cares? He's not happy right now. Wait until we have a draft under Steve Wilks. Wait until he can bring in whatever he's going to bring into. And next year, if it's the same thing, then you can throw your hissy fit and then we can think about trading you or wait until your last year. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below in that comment section. Do you think that Patrick Peterson is getting traded? Where do you think he is getting traded to? Who should pull the trigger on a Patrick Peterson trade? Let us know what you guys think down below in that comment section.